We just wanted to slow it down, start a family, and after some research and looking around different places, Corvallis really fit the bill. So college town, we moved here, and then the question became, now what are we going to do for income? So we kind of got that backwards, but the drive-through espresso was not really quite a thing. We're starting to see a little bit of it in Seattle. So it just seemed like an easy entry, investment-wise. We built a attractive little two-sided drive-through in a shopping mall.
Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club, where we discuss all of the insights, expertise, and drama that goes into making your passion your profession. Our hosts, Aaron, Ben, and Drew, are three coffee experts who have taken their coffee experience and turned it into true expertise. They have consulted with major coffee brands throughout the United States and beyond, providing operations expertise and growth strategy for drive-through openings, multiple locations, and everything in between. So brew yourself a cup and hang out a bit with the Coffee Experts Club.
Coffee Experts Club, we are back. Drew Moody, how's Belize?
It feels good. It's hot as usual, and we're entering the wet season, so it's now amping up its humidity, and I'm trying to compensate by wearing lighter clothes, but no matter what lighter clothes I wear, they're always going to be sweaty.
Always gonna be sweaty. And tell me, Ben, you're excited to be sweaty though, right? You're going to be getting sweaty here in just a little bit, heading down to Belize yourself.
Man, the sweat's not so bad when you're sitting on the beach. You got a little tropical breeze coming up off the water. Like, I'm
Yep.
totally okay with that. I'm ready
Yep.
for it.
That's where I should be doing this meeting from, but there's no Wi-Fi out there.
Where are you at right now, Drew? Are you in San Ignacio or San Pedro?
I'm on San Pedro right now. I arrived yesterday to come work on some equipment as
That's
the
amazing.
never-ending cycle.
The never-ending cycle. And speaking of equipment, we're going to talk to a Jedi in the arts of equipment today. I'm pretty excited to have him on the show. Really excited about our guest today. So the
Yeah.
guys that we're going to bring on today have been doing something pretty powerful for a long time. Up just north of me here in Southern Oregon, they're up in Corvallis, Oregon, and they are just legends in the space. They've got 4 locations of their own. They've got their own roastery. But with that, I'm going to bring, with no further ado, to the stage, Paul Tostberg and Andrew Schmuck to the stage to talk to us about coffee culture and Holderness Roastery. So guys, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, man. So I mean, my kids live in the Corvallis area, Paul. That's how you and I met. And so funny a story about me and Paul's meeting. And then I'm
Yes.
going to wind in how it's developed for us and how much of an asset you've been to us here for Coffee This Mice, but coffee experts in general. So I was with my son stopping at your coffee shop to get a cup of coffee, and you guys just have the best coffee. We were doing a meeting, he and I, on some business stuff. And we walked out to the parking lot, and I saw a guy in the back just sweeping up the garbage, the trash receptacle area. And I told David, I'm like, that's either the gardener or the owner, so knowing about how these things work and how coffee works, and just how coffee, you just have to, from the bottom up, just serve from the bottom up. And so I walked back there, and I think I startled you a bit, and like some creeper coming up on you in the coffee enclosure area or in the trash enclosure area. And I'm like, hey, is this your place? And it turned into a great conversation. And
Yeah.
Paul, you've just been a tremendous resource to us. And I'm excited just to interview you a little bit on today's show.
Well, I appreciate that. And the trash enclosure has never looked better. Clean as a whistle.
Drew has spent much time in many trash enclosures.
That's where it all starts. You work your way
That's
up
where the
from
magic happens.
there. At full circle, you wind up back there sometimes.
So, Paul, you guys, you've been in the Corvallis area for a long time. I think you kicked off coffee culture in 1993 from what I've read about you online. And then
Yep.
you kicked off your own brand with Holderness some years later. I think, did you say 2012? You've kicked off
Yeah, I think
Holderness
that's about right.
with your roasting company. Maybe just tell us a little bit about your journey. Why Corvallis? How'd you get to 4 locations? I know you started with just a single drive-through, right? And then maybe
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about life.
Well, this is 30 years that we've been in coffee in Corvallis. My wife and I, Lisa, we've been self-employed for about 45 years. Restaurant background. We had a car wash for years down in Southern Cal. We just wanted to slow it down, start a family. And after some research and looking around different places, Corvallis really fit the bill.
Yeah.
So college town, we moved here, and then the question became, now what are we going to do for income? So we kind of got that backwards, but the drive-through espresso was not really quite a thing. We're starting to see a little bit of it in Seattle. So it just seemed like an easy entry, investment wise. We built a attractive little two-sided drive-through in a shopping mall. It's a neighborhood, shopping center with a grocery and about 25 other merchants. And it really panned out. From there, we just continued to expand to what are now 4 locations. And it's a lot of it for Lisa and I. It was a great vehicle for us to be able to have flexible time with, the kids. And so that was sort of the main goal. And it worked out pretty good.
I'll tell you what, like, and Ben and Drew, I'd love for you guys just to riddle Paul's mind with all of your questions. Cause I know you guys have probably got a bunch of questions coming up, and then I'd love to like tangle it into how Andrew got involved with roasting. But the thing that I just like to qualify for our listeners that are here, is, for me and Drew and Ben, I feel like we were on the heels of what your generation was kicking off with coffee. But just to give everybody a reference, this is the same year that Dutch Bros started. You know what I mean? Like, as far as, it wasn't like Paul saw a bunch of drive-throughs really kicking ass and taking names.
Yeah.
And so he went and jumped on the wagon. He was like at the forefront of this concept of, let's open a window and put quick coffee out the window and keep people on the roads. I think just super inspiring. And I just want to say, we're so grateful for the legacy that you laid out for those guys who built on it.
To that point, I was the general contractor on the project. And not that I knew anything about building, but, we figure stuff out. And people were driving past going, hey, what's it going to be? And I got some looks like, the what? Drive through espresso. So it was not a guaranteed success.
That's so forefront of, the drive-through industry. There was a spot here in my town. I think they opened up in 92. But it was a coffee drive-through, but it was also very, very, very heavily substantiated with sandwiches. Like, they had a whole sandwich menu, soups, everything like that. What gave me the confidence to say, hey, we're doing just coffee? Like, we don't need a whole menu. Like, we're going coffee.
No, we didn't actually. When we opened, I had a buddy we used to live down in Newport Beach, California. And a buddy had a small chain of photomats. It wasn't brand name photomat, but it was, you drive up, you drop off your 35 millimeter film and come back the next day and they, give you your prints. So we opened in 1993 as Photo Espresso.
Wow. Look at that. That's amazing. Tell us about that story. That's amazing.
Well, I mean, a lot of times it's better to give people more than one reason to come in.
Yeah.
So we just figured, we're in this demographic where, lots of young families, husbands and wives, minivans, kids in the back. Drive-through is kind of convenient. Yeah, so we really just sort of hedged our bet and had people doing both coffee and film developing. And then, go forward, maybe 3 years. And that's when we started to see the digital. And, the handwriting was on the wall pretty soon. And but by then we'd built up a steady customer base for, espresso drinks, and we just phased out the film.
That is a crazy story. That is amazing. Drew. So I always tease Drew, Paul. You'll love this. This is why I told you and Drew would love each other when you guys got on the phone earlier in this week. Because every week, every time Drew and I talk about it, because Belize is really, the great thing about Belize is they're about 20 or 30 years behind us, right? As far as it's an up and coming country, but it's still, a third world country. The crazy part about it, that is though, is a lot of the things that have really caught on here haven't quite caught on down there yet. And so Drew will always say, hey, we should start a business and then fill in the blank. And then the next week I talk to Drew and he's like, hey, we should start a business. And it's like a next fill in the blank. And so like to do a photo development and a coffee shop, like Drew's eyes just,
smart. We should be doing prints too.
Of course, the tricky part is, being able to, see, just a little bit forward and imagine what, the demand's going to be for something. Apparently now it's pickleball and coffee and vinyl.
Yeah.
Put all those things together and,
I'm really curious about your journey you said you got 4 locations now in a roastery.
Yeah.
And you've been around since 1993. So what was it that was fueling, how far apart you spaced your openings and what did that look like? And is 4 stores that your sweet spot for, employee management and equipment management as well?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm the chief wrencher on machines and, all this stuff is just out of necessity. like, well, hell, I can't afford for bringing some guy in from Portland,
Right.
you know, fix my steam wand. So, but timing wise, there was probably maybe 5, 6 years until we opened our number two, which was another drive through that we bought out a competitor. And that was also a trailer. It was, an actual trailer that with the skirt around. And that was interesting. But, it was in a great location and we did great there. And then after that, we were looking for a sit down location because, I mean, you guys have got a drive through and you've got a walk in too, right?
That's right.
So,
Mhm.
I mean, my interest in coffee, and I think a lot of people's, goes back to what I really want is to sit down, bring my newspaper,
Yeah.
right? And get my coffee, whatever you know, I'm drinking an Americano or, something pretty straightforward and a pastry and, you know, just have a nice moment. So that's quite a bit different than a drive through.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the drive through is a safe bet because it's very convenient and a lot of people love them. But we really wanted to have a cafe location that we could add, a bit more romance to the style that we were offering. And it's a great location. Drew, I don't know if you've seen that Kings Boulevard location. It's next to Woodstock's Pizza.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
Okay.
we consider that our main location. And, it's just this great community that we've built up. People come and hang out and meet, and it's got a real international flavor because of the university. So you hear, 2 or 3 different languages being spoke. We just love it. And then the last one we opened up downtown, it was originally built as a Dairy Queen,
Wow.
Okay.
a walk up, no drive up, no drive through. You just
Wow.
walk up from the sidewalk and order ice cream or I don't know, cheeseburger or something. So, I mean,
It's very small.
very small, but
Yeah.
it's like 400 square feet.
Wow.
But
my
that's
gosh.
perfect for downtown because,
Mhm.
we just wanted to be there, part of that scene. And so each of them is different from the others. It's not a cookie cutter kind of a business where we want to, just do the same, the same, the same. Although
Sure.
that is smart to do. If you're going to build a big organization, then you could really standardize things, but that's not really our style. So,
Right.
we got to just come in and reinvent the wheel every time.
That
Pretty
sounds like the argument that Drew and I get into every time we talk about like next vacation. I'm like, let's just do it the same way we did last time. And Drew's like, yeah, but we could do it so much cooler this time. And he's full on Coffee and Los Mayas with this third one. I'm coming down in June to meet up with Drew. We're going to meet up with some folks on properties and talk about the next venture for this year. And this is exactly the conversation we're having. Drew's like, yeah, but the romance and a cafe and a sit down and we could have some extra storage. And I'm like, yeah, but let's do what we know. And so it's good that we're hearing you talk about it, Paul.
Well, I mean, these are important things to discuss. You got to kind of be true to what you really want to do. And, you're going to compromise some, but you don't want to get to a place where you're regretting, like,
Mhm.
oh, gee, we really should have done this. So,
Yeah.
good to have those, work it out.
Hey, coffee experts. Those of you running independent coffee shops, you're always looking for ways that you can drop your costs. And we here at the Coffee Experts Club really understand that. And so we've started something called Indie Coffee Coalition. And what it's designed to do is to drop your costs on two of the things that you're probably experiencing the highest sales volume in your store. And that is energy drink and frat mix. Those two line items, we've created our own products and are offering you those products at a reduced cost so that you can cut out the Red Bull of America. You can cut out the main lines of energy drinks that you're doing and serve your own energy drink at a reduced cost on a line item that you're probably already making a lot of sales on anyway. The best way that you can grow sales is by dropping your costs and maintaining a current volume. So check us out at indiecoffee.co and we'll love to tell you more there. Tell us about the roastery. Tell us about how you got into roasting.
Okay. So, Andrew, you asked how did he get into roasting? Andrew, how did you get into roasting?
Well, I think the common thing with roasters is like none of us get into it the same way.
Right.
But I was hired about 8 years ago to be a baker for Coffee Culture. And I had recently started going back to school for my food science degree with a focus in fermentation.
Wow.
and did that for, a couple years. And then the previous roaster decided to move on to some other things. And I had been doing, some like intern work for him for credit at the university. And Paul and Lisa, just basically offered me the opportunity to take over the roasting operation, even though I hadn't even worked as a barista. Um, and I've just been doing that for the last 6 years.
It turns out if you understand the chemistry, you can roast coffee really well. You don't necessarily have to be good with your latte art.
Thank God I'm not having to do that because it's abysmal.
But also just quickly, I don't know if you can see, we've got a US roaster 5 kilo that we were using at our cafe location.
Yeah.
Originally. And that's a lot of batches.
Mm-hmm.
We're netting 8 pounds.
Yeah, 8 pounds. And
Times,
we were,
uh,
we were roasting about, by the time that we moved into this location and got a bigger roaster, I was roasting anywhere from 500 pounds a week to, I think, even as high as 1,200.
So when we, got our wits about us, we decided getting a bigger roaster was a very good idea,
Right.
and so we did. We got a 15 kilo Joper, which is Portugal manufacturer, and love it. And, basically we're doing the same amount of roasting in a third of the time.
It's
Wow.
incredible.
Yeah. So that was huge.
That is so funny, your story, Andrew. Like that's, I mean, we've got buddies who are roasters, and every one of them is like, I just kind of started doing this, and I guess I
Yeah.
was good at it. And I kept doing it.
Yeah, it's not something that you can really go to school for. Although, OSU, I've heard allegedly they're starting up a coffee degree program. But yeah, I think it's, for a lot of us, it's just right place, right time. And
Yeah.
thankfully, Paul and Lisa decided to take a chance on, somebody who I didn't have any bona fides within coffee specifically. So I got lucky.
I think that's one of the best parts about coffee, honestly. And as I look at the different industries, and Paul and I talked about this a little bit, but all the different industries you can get into. And as you start investing in business and growing business and deciding where you want to put your money in businesses, like there are a lot of businesses that are a significant startup cost. Like it's really expensive to get in, or if you're going to do a franchise, you got to prove yourself, or you have to have a certain amount of money sitting staged in the bank. I think one of the coolest things that as we interview coffee shop owners, and obviously so much respect for what you guys have built up there. But what we do find is that a lot of times it's people that have that can-do attitude of, no, we're going to fix this out. I'm the chief wrench turner, like Paul said, or like I'm the one that's going to jump in and take this degree I have that's not even really applicable in this necessarily focus, but I'm going to push it this way. And I think if you have the desire and you have like will to learn and willingness to try, I think that coffee is a really cool industry where you can kind of make that uniquely your own, and it's quirky and it's unique and it's different. And that's what gives each coffee shop a flavor. I know when we moved into San Ignacio down in Belize, that's something Drew and I really tried to talk about. There are other coffee shops there, and we're not here to talk ill of anybody else. Like everybody has their own niche. Everybody has their own following. Everybody has things that are going to appeal to one person. Maybe we're not going to appeal to that person. Let's speak well of everybody that's around us and really hone in on what's our quirkiness, like what's our uniqueness, what makes our brand the best from our perspective. And we're going to lean into that. So I love that story. Thanks, Pete.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And, the fact that it is a fairly low barrier to entry, that really opens it up for, all kinds of people. I mean, you've read the stories. I mean, Blue Bottle in California. I mean, I'm a little bit envious that I didn't start out like roasting coffee in my garden shed, and selling it to my neighbors. I mean, because these are the origin stories that I just love.
Yeah.
They're so good.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I'm curious, like where in the timeline you just started to bring on roasting? Was it fairly later in your history, or pretty early on? Like at what point did you start
2012. Yeah, Bill was wondering how in the timeline did you decide to start roasting? 2012, like 2012.
Yeah.
Like that's the significant amount of years from 1993. What entered it into your brain of let's try this?
Well, I'll tell you, it was interesting. We were at a trade show up in Seattle, SCA.
Yeah.
And or maybe it was Portland. Anyway, it was It was at SCAA in those days.
Right.
And we came away, Lisa, myself, and Garrett that he was referring to, that and a couple of the other managers. Anyway, we all came away talking amongst ourselves, like all of the coffee companies that we admire roast. So we thought, well, we'd better get in the game. And so pretty much immediately we, came back. There was another thing that was happening. Our cafe was giving us kind of an identity crisis.
Right.
Because when we opened at that time, I don't know if you know, the Mulattoes have a Bellissimo, but anyway, they're big wigs in the industry out of Portland. Matt Mulatto, or actually it was his dad, Bruce, was saying, "Hey, put in a panini press. Make some soup. You can offer some of these food items."
Right.
Well, so we thought, okay, that sounds doable, because we both, Lisa and I, had been, in restaurants for years and years, and she's an amazing cook. So we go forward, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, and we're like, well, what are we? Are we a restaurant or are we a coffee bar? Because I got people walking in our door that have zero interest in coffee.
Right.
They want to know what the soup of the day is. So we said, okay, we're just going to get rid of a cafe menu.
Wow.
We did a small remodel. We brought in the 5K roaster, and then we just kind of sweated it out for that first year, because there was a lot of pissed off people.
Right. I
saying,
bet.
"Hey, where's my panini?" But within, 6-8 months, we started to see that it really was, it was feeling right. People were coming because of coffee, not for these other things. And so that's what got us those two things.
What a big, brave step, man. Like, I think because you're walking away from a whole segment of business that was proven, dollars coming in the door, and to say, hey, we're going to do a remodel. And when we do a remodel, we're going to cut out half of our market share that was coming in and really enjoying what we were doing, because we believe so much in this other new thing that we're going to bring to the market. And I think that probably is what I would say, like, anchored you guys in, is saying, no, we're putting our flag in the sand right here. Like, this is what we do. We're a coffee shop. We roast our own stuff, cut your costs, which probably allowed you to take some of the hit on the business that was lost from making food. But I think that's so brave and so, like, inspiring to really identify, no, what are you in this business to do? Drew and I talk about it all the time of what things should we be doing here? What things should we bring under our roof? And what things should we just source and bring in baked goods from somebody else, because we don't want to mess with that. Let's just lean in. We know, so I think that's pretty inspiring.
Well, I mean, you want to be satisfied and feel like you're doing what you really want to do.
Yeah.
And you have a passion to do. And so, coffee has just always been that way. The other things, I didn't feel strongly about. I mean, we had a restaurant here down in California. Didn't feel strongly about, needing to serve somebody lunch. So we do bake. We've always baked, for 20 years. And we have 3 full-time bakers. And that's a lot of scones, biscotti muffins, for breads.
Yeah, I can vouch
I
for
You
that.
guys, baked goods are excellent. I loved your baked goods.
Yeah, and it's a blast. I mean, so that's where we can also be creative. And I think that allows us to set ourselves apart, because it is sort of an organic scene that we're doing much of it ourselves with intention, and we can, be creative and come up with new things to offer.
I'm curious about a little bit. I know you and I mentioned in our call the other day about the technology of things. I know you guys have been making coffee for enough time to see tech things shift, from origins to learning, how detailed and specific these pieces of equipment can be. And I'm curious if you share your take on, how we balance the romantic side of things with, what is actually going to be more efficient. And what is actually going to help the business.
You don't have to have some little Italian man walking around behind the counter. Well, yeah, that's fair. I mean, I go back to where my dad used to take my brother and I in Seattle. We'd go down to the Starbucks. It's like the
Right.
one place.
Yeah.
And they were kind of like spice merchants. I mean, they had whole bean coffee. They would grind coffee for you if you wanted, but they had all the brewing equipment. They were very knowledgeable. Mainly, I think they were doing much of it was mail order. But so, and my whole family's always been interested in drinking coffee. So I just kind of grew up in that. The next experience I had was working in restaurants in Seattle, and there'd be a big cappuccino machine in the back, with the copper dome on it, and so that was like, oh, this is, and I'd been to Europe and I knew about espresso. So that was very romantic, all of that, just you had to have a long white apron and so the equipment, the one thing that you don't hear nowadays is those doser grinders that
Right.
are, clickety, 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 click, right? And all that, which we used to do. I mean, that's how we did do it.
Yeah.
But the improvements that have been made as far as grinders, dosers, automatic dosers, and even now with the puck press, you guys using the puck press? Or
Not in Belize. We did a little bit in Washington.
okay, so but you're familiar. These are things that I kind of pushed back against because it wasn't the way that it was always done.
Right.
And I had a conversation with Mike up at La Marzocco, and he said, "Hey, man, you need to check out the puck press." And I said, "I don't think so." He goes, "Oh no." He goes, "You go talk to." He gave me a list of a few coffee companies, respectable ones, and I did. I went to Olympia Coffee Roasting. I'll just go and talk to them because I knew
Yeah.
that they really are particular.
Right.
And I went in. And I said, "Do you feel inadequate? You feel like a sellout?"
Right.
And these are very experienced baristas, and they're like, "Yeah, we did for one day."
We actually used it.
And yeah, and never looked back. And so we went ahead and brought those in, and it's an innovation that makes total sense. I mean, standardize the tamping pressure. You take the repetitive motion, much
Yep.
of it out of the barista workflow.
Yep.
So yeah, I think there's definitely been some very good things that have been brought to the equipment, the temperature stability on the groups, with the PID, so that you're really the variation used to be like whoa, and so those are exactly what they should have been focusing on, and they did.
Mhm.
It's amazing.
It's true.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
we talk equipment all the time, and I know we would love to bring you back and talk just a whole show on equipment because I know Thru and I wrestled through, and I know you've talked to Thru a lot about older machines versus newer machines and what are the modernizations that are actually a good thing and what are the traditional things that are just a more steady chassis that are going to be something that you can build on and that's going to last for longer. But I
Yeah.
think that I really do admire your mind and how do you balance the new versus the old? And I'd love to dive into that in the future, but I think we're about time now. So I think that I just want to say, Paul and Andrew, what an honor just to have you guys on. Thank you for being willing to join us on today's show. And I would love to have you guys back maybe for another episode sometime in the future if you'd be up for that.
Well, we would enjoy it as well. But yeah, let's do something with, more into the equipment. He can talk at length about, what's going on with the roasting, and that would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for joining us today. So good to have you guys on Coffee Experts, and we really appreciate your time.
All
Yeah,
right.
thanks for
Okay.
having
Take care,
us.
fellas.
Yeah, Ben,
Thank you,
Thru,
guys.
so good to have you guys.
Hey, Thru,
sir.
keep those linen shirts handy.
Yeah, that's the key. Pack those on your trip. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week on Coffee Experts. Hey, experts, we've got something really awesome that we do here at Coffee Experts Club, and that's called the My First Drive-Through Coffee Masterclass. So if you're opening your next coffee shop, I think a lot of times you may think to yourself, I know what goes into opening a coffee shop. I've been doing this for years, but maybe you've been doing it for somebody else. And maybe this is your first option of starting a coffee shop on your own. Or maybe you don't know anything about coffee and you're just like, I'm looking for a good investment opportunity. Starting a coffee shop seems like a good place to put it. And you're going to enter into it. But what you don't know is all the things that you don't know, right? And so what we've done with this masterclass is taken behind the scenes how you find your first location, what you need to be thinking about in finding a location. We give you a gift in the masterclass where it's a step-by-step process of how you're opening your coffee shop, the different checkpoints you need from coming up with your plans and talking with the city and then negotiating a lease. And then how do you build a team and what are the different pieces you need to be thinking about? It's a great masterclass, door to door, start to finish, completely free on opening up your next coffee drive-through. So check it out. It's at myfirstdrivethrough.coffee and it's a great masterclass. You won't regret it. We'll see you on the inside there.
Thanks so much for joining us today. For those of you who are looking to become a coffee expert yourself, we offer an incredible, thorough training online for opening your first coffee drive-through at www.myfirstdrivethrough.coffee.